but we are actually delivering care through a system of professional neighbors and shift staff, all full-time in a neighborhood. So we're delivering care as a neighborhood instead of in a home basis. I always tell people, if you delivered Uber like you did in-home care, you would hire a driver for everybody that needed a ride. And every time the driver quit, you would have a care gap.
Welcome to IDD Leader, where human services leaders grow their impact, lead with heart, and build the workplaces our field deserves. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. What would it feel like if your organization had virtually no vacancies, just hardly any overtime, just a little bit of overtime being used, and your turnover was low? Try that on for just a moment. How would that feel? What would happen if I told you that there's a guide that can help you get there? My conversation today is with Dr. Mike Strouse, and that's exactly what he's been doing. He is helping organizations get there through a very innovative model and process that this conversation is the second half. It's part two. So we started sharing it in the last episode. You may want to check that out first, but you can also just dive into the conversation right here. He's the CEO of GoodLife Innovations and has been disseminating the knowledge and the breakthroughs that they've been having with their own organization now to many other organizations and seeing incredible, repeatable results. So without further ado, enjoy today's conversation.
What I will tell you is this. When we published this way back in the 2000s, it's still true what I'm about ready to tell you. And that is live by, live near, live with strategies are still more stable. And I'm going to specifically say, there's all different kinds of brands of shared living. And I've seen different states do it differently. And sometimes it's not very good. Sometimes it's incredibly good. But we started doing, if I know what you mean by shared living, we started doing shared living first in the late 1990s. So a long time. And we now serve at GoodLife, 88 families are providing support to 135 people with an average, and I'll use the word turnover right now because it's more useful in shared living, but the average turnover since 1999 of 3% annual turnover. Now, I will tell you that to maintain those 135 placements now, we have to replace 2 to 3 families a year to support 135 people.
So that's, truly remarkable. Just those numbers are just remarkable.
Yeah, well, but the point I'm really wanting to make on that is if those same 135 people were in shift-based homes, I'd have to find 150 people a year. So my point is, whatever your plan is, by the way, shared living is a long play. It's not a short play because to do it right, you got to cultivate literally upon hire as a DSP, we are cultivating them to become shared living providers as a career.
And can you just quickly define what a shared living provider is? I think most listeners probably know, but at least to explain how you guys do it.
From my perspective, it's a live with model. And in our method, we pay as a contractor, but under our license. So it doesn't matter whether they're a contractor or employee, but under the right conditions, done the right way, the compensation you give to them is without burden of compensation taxes, meaning there's tax-free income for them. And you're able to give more resources because there's fewer different people involved in care. So it's well compensated. And usually these people have been already developed relationships for more than a few years, and then they migrate to these positions. It is a migration. And we even provide establishment funding, establishment grants for them to do this. So it's very intentional. But I can tell you this, not only is it low, so if you had a third of your services in shared living at 3%, you not only have produced incredible outcomes for those people, but it also has reduced your shift burden for the rest of your program.
Hmm.
Plus, it is the only way we've been growing about 5% a year in that for a long time. It's the only way that you can actually grow without any investments in housing and transportation. So what you do is you cultivate these relationships in your program, you place people out in shared living, you bring new people into the program, and in a very methodic ways they socialize that, and it's kind of like a percolation of relationships. But and so the other last model I'm going to tell you about is our neighborhood network, which I'm so super excited about. We've been doing it since 2011. And it's a neighborhood approach to care, and it's primarily focused on fractional care. And basically, now we're actually heat mapping need in various different areas. We are delivering silo-free care, so we're literally moving out of IDD. What we found is that in a normal neighborhood, yes, you can infuse a typical. I'm not talking about an intentional community. I'm just talking about a normal neighborhood.
Okay.
Apartments, whatever they are, but not an intentional community, just a normal neighborhood. But in a normal neighborhood, let's say with housing, like you go to apartments, it may have up to a couple thousand units across large places. You will have about 12 of those units come open every month. You can literally step into that with IDD where one or two people could live together, but we are actually delivering care through a system of professional neighbors and shift staff, like I just described,
Hmm.
all full time in a neighborhood. So we're delivering care as a neighborhood instead of in a home basis. Because what we found through all of our research is something that shouldn't be surprising. Is actually, if you go to our website, there's a great interview with Noel, who is a person who has experienced in-home care. But everybody who experienced it has the same problem. I always tell people if you delivered Uber like you did in-home care, you would hire a driver for everybody that needed a ride. And every time the driver quit, you would have a care gap. And what happens in in-home care is that you have people who have wonky needs that are all over the place, and they're fractional, and they're not in any neat grouping, and they're not predictable. So if this was assisted living, if you viewed it that way, if you were in an assisted living program where people are mostly independent in assisted living, you have a core group of people in assisted living meeting the needs of a bigger group of people that are in that facility, right?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. Well, we approach the same thing in neighborhoods. We heat map a neighborhood, we look at need, we infuse it with people, or we capture the need in it. And we develop fundamentally a core group of staff of professional neighbors and 3-day work week folks that are supporting need in that neighborhood organically. But the only difference is we have to infuse it with technology, which we do. And it's another part of our program. So, yeah.
And are these individuals with IDD, or are these seniors, or what's
Yes.
the just yes?
Well, it started as IDD. But let me tell you my fun. I know we're at the end, but I tell you my fun story. I was doing only this in 2011. We were just sort of pioneering this approach. The vision was we wanted all of the advantages of congregate care with none of the baggage. We wanted to have a core group of people. We wanted to make sure that we had good schedules. We wanted to deliver care at the moment of need. So we wanted all of that, but we didn't want any appearance of congregate care. We wanted everything being inclusive. So I went to this very large development and which had about 10, 12 open vacancies a month out of these 2,000 units, a very typical neighborhood. And I would start doing leases, moving two people with IDD into these normal neighborhoods. I had professional neighbors I hired and put into the neighborhood. And I had mobile caregivers that would be working. We delivered over time. We delivered this really robust system that became, a Movie Mountains Award winner in 2020, and it won Autism Speaks Most Innovative Service Model in 2016. It really got some really good notoriety. We probably have two groups visit that a month from all across the country now, because it combines technology and the service model and a geographic area that's kind of a care is an amenity of a neighborhood. It's kind of the
Mm.
idea. Well, anyway, I was doing this with the first one, and we were probably at about home 10 out of these 2,000 units, because our goal was to be no more than 3% of the units, so it'd
Okay.
be typical. Well, anyway, about halfway through it, I got a call from the developer, Doug Price. And Doug had literally 12,000 rental units. And he's wanted to know, who are you and who is GoodLife? Because we were guaranteeing the leases for these folks.
Yeah.
And so I told him who we were and what we were doing. And he got really quiet. And he said, well, you probably thought I was going to get mad at you, but I have a son who's 28 who has autism. And I've always wanted this. And I've always hoped something like this could happen. And you've done it.
Mm.
And about, I don't know, probably couple, maybe 6 months later, he gave us a check for $1 million for our mission.
Mm.
And he said, and when he gave it to us, he said, I'm going to give you this, but I'm going to give you some advice that's worth more. And I'm all ears on this. We got to be, and still are good friends.
Yeah.
And he said, well, 25% of everybody I lease to are seniors organically. And I don't provide services. So when they have challenges, they just move on to assisted living. And he said, and I love seniors because, they pay the rent on time and they don't tear up the joint. And I thought that was kind of funny.
That's a good. It's a good.
But
Yeah.
it's true. It's
Sure.
true. And he said, if you could expand the neighborhood network to support seniors, it would be enormously important for everybody, including them. So immediately we literally changed once again our mission. And now that's what we're doing. And it's like, look, I just last week worked with a major MCO. We went into, you know what a 9-digit zip code is?
Yeah. The last four that get added on. Yeah.
Well, that gets you down to about a city block.
Okay.
We did a study. I'm not privileged to tell you where it was, but in an urban area, and we determined that there were 500 waiver participants in 4 contiguous city blocks,
Mm.
all of which were getting services without any regard to their neighbor from different providers all over the place, completely disjointed. So you have part-time caregivers working to meet those needs. And right next door, you had part-time caregivers. And down the street, you had part-time caregivers. And all of them had gaps. But it was like Uber hiring a driver for everybody that needed a ride. When if you looked at on the whole, what you really had was the potential of a virtual facility and a different approach to care. All you had to do was think outside the box of, we're no longer looking anymore at just one group, because they all had up at night needs. They all had these core group of needs that we could support. So we are in the process of expanding what we now have as neighborhood networks, which we have had for a while. Now we're looking at 15-minute deployments, going to neighbors that we do science-based heat mapping to find out where people are. And then and so if you go listen to my podcast right now, Nate, I talk a lot about blue zones. If you've heard that, yeah, it's like,
I listen to
you
your
know,
podcast since
so
I
yeah, my
first found it.
goal
Yeah.
is, my goal is, I want to create something that's a little bit blue zone like, I want to create a neighborhood that has caras and amenity of it that supports neighbors in need, and that I want, different people in that group to volunteer to have purpose and help each other. And I mean, it's now, I think we got a life of work ahead of us to think again, how could we change how we do services? And I think, my parting shot is, you always have to look differently at, if you really want, to make a difference, you got to be willing to really think outside the box. And when technology came along, it really changed the game about how we could deliver care, because this fractional care, I call it care on demand, and I'll even say self-directed is a really good part of that. But that kind of care requires technology to give it make it be a thing.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
since you don't have a physical facility, you have to create kind of a virtual one,
Right, right,
you
right.
know? So anyway, that's kind of the area I'm in right now, but I love all of it, and, I think, as a nation, we just got to all work together to keep moving the needle forward. I would love to see, frankly, Nate, and this is some of the things we're looking at, is having a national, conference that's much narrower than most conferences, that's really just solely looking at technology and service models. And that each year they're kind of connected. So the idea of the conference, in my vision, would be you come together, you learn about some stuff, then you do some strategic planning, and then you play part of a partnership of what you bring back to the table the next
Mm.
year. So it's not a one and done kind of conference. It's almost a subscription,
Yeah,
for
okay,
want of a
yeah, I see what you're saying.
better
It's
word. I mean,
not just
that's a
someone,
little
yeah,
highfalutin, but I'm trying to make people understand that this is not a one and done thing we're doing here.
absolutely. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. There's so many big takeaways that I've already kind of gotten from this, and a lot of this information, I had researched ahead of time, but from things you've shared and starting to listen to your podcast and everything along those
Might
lines.
I might I say we're not, in all frankness, we got plenty of business, and we are a not for profit, so we're not doing this, we want to help people, but our website, our company, not for profit, is GoodLife Innovations, but our website is mygoodlife.org.
Yes, I'll definitely put that
And
in the show notes as
put
well.
that in there, and they go there. There's plenty of, they got the podcast, they got videos, and they got connections, so that if they want to learn more, I do a free one-on-one with any agency asks me to do it, as long as it's one that I think I can help.
Sure.
And we've always done that, because it takes an hour and a half to understand how you approach something.
Yeah.
So it's not. I just tell our group it is not a simple thing that we are all doing. And it isn't simple to explain sometimes. So it takes a little bit more time, but once you get through it, you see people head nod. You feel good about that.
Absolutely. No, I'll definitely put the contact or the website in the show notes. Um, and the I guess the biggest thing I'm thinking from as I'm listening to all this is that for audience members, um, just that hearing about a cool innovation or innovative not model is great, but until you start to put action behind it, that it just stays out there somewhere. But the solutions are there to be had, and it sounds like you've not only championed that at your own organization, but you're seeing the results of that at other organizations as well.
And
And
learning from them, by the way, Nate, you can't always take back that there's always a nugget you pick up here or there. I was just in Alaska, and they have their labor laws are more challenging than California, which I thought was very interesting. And they're only delivering about 50% of their fractional care, so they're leaving half of the care on the
mm,
table. But what's cool about Alaska is every place is like disconnected from other place, so they literally, their social services it meets all need in that little town that they're in. So you learn stuff from different places. That's kind of where I learned that, why should we be looking at just one population when we're delivering night support services or something like that?
yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
listen,
anyway, it's so fun talking to you. I
this
really
is oh,
appreciate it.
thank you so much for sharing. We'll have to see if I get you back on the show at some point because I feel like we just scratched the surface on some things that would be, I think, very, very relevant for everyone that's
Well,
listening.
always happy to help, but I really appreciate you on what you do. The podcasts in my mind are, and I do them too. And the podcasts are so important because it isn't a minute that we have to talk about this. It takes time, and you're working with people that drive around, they can do that. The podcast is a great service, and you work with some great people. I've seen, I know many of the people that you work with. They're very important people in our field, and they've got great perspectives to share, and we need to listen to them all.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that encouragement, and thank you so much for your time. Wow. 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 I don't know what to say. I mean, just so many insights came from this conversation. And there's a whole different approach here. I don't know if you're catching it. I mean, this has the potential to do some paradigm shifting in a way that actually capitalizes on what so many of us aspire to have as our goals, and we have them as our values, but how can we actually implement that for both the individuals we serve and for every one of our staff who are just pouring out their lives, devoting themselves to our mission? Well, I mean, we could talk about this and unpack this for a long time, but I always try to leave you with at least one something that you can an action item that you can implement right away. And this would be my one for this. It's actually not as fast. Sometimes I give you fast ones. This is a little more involved. I dare you to track the number of people, the number of staff involved with the care of each of the people you serve, and to start to take a look at the correlation between as that number of staff goes up, then what those outcomes look like for those being served. That was a valuable insight that Dr. Mike Strouse shared about not just tracking turnover data, but tracking the number of people involved in the care for each one of the individuals that you serve. I cannot wait to hear how that goes for you. And I recognize that could be a bit involved if that's not something that's already happening on a regular basis, if you're not already tracking that. But I'm sure you have the data available. Just a matter of getting someone to dive in and look at that. Anyhow, one other thought was this was a really valuable conversation. It has the potential to really transform how quite a few agencies are doing things. And so I want to encourage you, share this with a colleague, share this with someone in your organization, or share this with a friend or colleague outside of your organization as well. I'm sure that it will really give them a lot of food for thought. And of course, also go check out the website, his website, which is going to be linked in the show notes below. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with IDD Leader, you can always also sign up for our weekly newsletter. And the emails I send out, I keep hearing just tremendous feedback from people saying that they find it encouraging, and also just that it connects them to resources they didn't even know about. And so all you need to do for that is just go to iddleader.com just iddleader.com and go down, scroll down the bottom of the page and sign up for the newsletter. So yeah, well, until next time, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.